And indeed, there have been leadership rumblings when it comes to labor, going back to last year. Like, this didn't just start this year. The rumblings actually started last year. So more like a year into Starmer's premiership. From Legomicus Studio 2, the big news in politics today actually was not in the United States. It was in the United Kingdom. And as expected, I don't think that there were a lot of people who were surprised about it at this stage. But Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, announced his resignation. We, I think, all saw this coming. It was just a matter of when. So Keir Starmer was elected the British Prime Minister after Labour's landslide victory. He was appointed, actually, technically, the British Prime Minister in the summer of 2024 after Labour was elected in a landslide. But just 2 years later, Starmer is going to be out. His successor is most likely going to be Andy Burnham, who until a few days ago was the mayor of Greater Manchester. He is a former Labour cabinet minister under the prior Labour administration, which was a long time ago at this point, pre the 2010 election. But Burnham is back, and Burnham came back to Parliament for one reason, and that was to contest the Labour leadership. But the United Kingdom, they are going to be very soon on their 7th Prime Minister since 2016, since the Brexit referendum. So you had David Cameron, you had Theresa May, you had Boris Johnson, you had Liz Truss, you had Rishi Sunak, you had Keir Starmer, and now the next Prime Minister, whom, again, will probably be Andy Burnham. We don't know that for sure yet, but probably. So just to take you back, Labour, of course, they win the 2024 election on the 4th of July, 2024, in a landslide, a Blair-esque landslide, over 400 seats. Labour's biggest win since 2001. After the Conservatives' poll numbers tanked, they started tanking under Liz Truss. She was gone after 7 weeks. And then Sunak took over, and they never got any better. The Conservatives had their worst election in probably 200 years. And that's not an exaggeration. It probably was about 200 years. So Labour comes in with this huge majority. And over the course of the last 2 years, Nigel Farage and Reform UK have been rising. They have in many ways replaced the Tories as the conservative or right-wing opposition to Labour. And what's been happening over the last few years, Labour's poll numbers have been sinking. There have been unforced errors by this Labour government. You have, for example, the Peter Mandelson situation, which continues to not look too great. That's just one of a number of things that have happened over the course of Starmer's tenure. And, ardent Labourites will tell you that there have been a lot of successes for the government. But you look at the poll numbers and it just doesn't seem like, for whatever reason that you want to attribute to it, like that has sunk in with the public, because you've seen some opinion polling. Indeed, most opinion polling at this point has Labour under 20% of the vote, just 2 years after winning a massive majority government. The speed at which Labour and this administration has squandered this huge majority that they've had. It's actually, as a political observer, it's not something that I thought I would see. When you're winning a majority with 410 plus seats, you would be thinking that Labour's going to be in for 2 terms minimum. So at least 8 to 10 years of a Labour government. But what's happened? If there were a general election today with Starmer leading, Labour would probably lose if you're looking at the polls. So their poll numbers have really, really tanked. And that caused a lot of Labour MPs and Labour supporters to think, maybe we should do something about this. And indeed, there have been leadership rumblings when it comes to labor, going back to last year. Like, this didn't just start this year. The rumblings actually started last year. So more like a year into Starmer's premiership, people were seeing the poll numbers and thinking, well, maybe we should do something. And granted, I will say, in all fairness, there are definitely some labor supporters out there today, because I do try to read, people's opinions and whatnot. There are definitely people who are very upset that Starmer's gone, that are saying that Starmer's been railroaded and any number of things along those lines. The rumblings to replace him have been there since last year. And a lot of us thought in the political observer space that Starmer's Waterloo could very well be the 2026 local elections. And Labor did lose almost 1,500 council seats. Actually, there were some people who thought that Labor was going to do worse. But I don't think that you can consider losing only 1,500 seats as a good result, because that's really not. And then, Labor just getting destroyed in Scotland. And not only getting destroyed in Scotland, but losing governance of Wales for the first time ever since devolution. So we're going back a long ways. But Wales does not have a Labour government anymore for the first time. So Labour has really, really fallen backwards in the last 2 years. Of course, there have been other by-election results. But then, if you're going to talk about by-election results, you got to talk about Makerfield, because this was the one last week. You had a Labour MP standing aside so that Andy Burnham could return to Parliament and challenge for the leadership. And going into that by-election in Makerfield, there was a sense that, maybe Labour doesn't have it. I mean, I did think that Burnham would ultimately win, but some people were thinking, well, Reform did really well in the local elections here just a month ago. So maybe it'll be a close call, or could Burnham actually lose? Well, not only did he not lose, he actually won by quite a bit. He ended up getting an absolute majority of the vote. In fact, if you took the Restore Britain vote and the Reform UK vote and put them together, they still don't even come close to beating Burnham. And he got almost 25,000 votes in that by-election. For a by-election, that is a lot of votes. So I think once that happened, that was pretty much it, that there was a rally behind Burnham in particular to take that seat and to, try to get himself into number 10. So once they said earlier in the weekend that Starmer was going to take the weekend to consider his position, and there was word that dozens upon dozens upon dozens of Labour MPs were telling him to go, and then you had a cabinet minister telling him to go. At that point, it was going to be pretty untenable for him to remain in his position. So I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by that. Now, the next question is, will this leadership race for Labour be a coronation for Andy Burnham? It might be. I think it's too soon to say. We will get into July, and in July, that is when the official leadership race will take shape. And at that point, we will know if Andy Burnham has any opposition. I think Labour would probably do well to have anyone, if not multiple people, stand for the Labour leadership to give. And of course, this is me just editorializing here as an American, so take this for whatever it's worth. But you would think that it would be beneficial for Labour to have an actual contest where the party members and the MPs, where they have a choice, where the people who have a say in the Labour leadership actually get to make a choice, and it's not just one option, Andy Burnham. But that's just me. The optics of a coronation probably wouldn't look the most amazing. But ultimately, it's up to the power brokers in Labour, and it's up to the Labour members and all the others to make a decision as who they want to lead them. But then, if you consider that Burnham is most likely going to be the next Prime Minister, the question is, can Andy Burnham save Labour? To that, I would say it's too soon to know. I think it would be reasonable to expect that if Burnham takes the Labour leadership, which I think we would all expect that he will at this point, even if it's not a coronation, even if he has opposition, I think we would all expect at this point that Burnham will be the next Labour leader and therefore the next Prime Minister at some point this summer. It's still too soon to know. I think it would be reasonable to expect that he will get a bounce once he takes over as Prime Minister. The question is, can he sustain that bounce? Who knows at this point? We're not there yet. So I think we all have to be kind of patient to see how things start to move. There's a chance that maybe Burnham can't save it. Maybe Burnham ends up just being a continuation of what the current government is doing. And right now, from what you can tell, in Britain as in the United States, there is a mood for change. So Burnham has to come in, if it is indeed Burnham, and I think it will be. He has to come in and try to convince the British people that he's an agent for change and that things are going to go differently under him. And if they don't, then I don't think it would be totally unreasonable to say that things are just going to kind of revert to where they've been under Starmer. So we will have to see. It's too early to know. The last question to ask here is, will there be a snap election? There are always going to be people in the opposition whenever there is a change in premiership. And it doesn't matter if it's in the UK or Canada or Australia or any Westminster-style parliamentary system. Whenever there is a change at the top, the opposition is always going to call for a snap election. There may indeed even be people within Labour that say, hey, look, it's just the right thing to do, whether it's us changing government or whatever. And I know that when the Tories had their revolving door prior to Labour taking government, that there were people saying we need to just have a general election to sort this out. So that is not uncommon. There have been articles out in the media that suggest that maybe Burnham will weigh it. If I were to give my sense on how I think it's going to go, even if there is an early election, I don't think it will necessarily be right away. Because if you're Burnham and you're coming in as Prime Minister, you are inheriting a very, very large majority. And if you turn around with this Labour leadership and you go to the polls in like September, unless the polling turns around, there's a really good chance you're going to lose a lot of MPs. A lot of them. Even if things get better than where they are under Starmer now. So, I mean, I just can't see it. I can understand the people saying, well, there's been a change at the top. The people should have a say as to whether or not they want to keep this Labour government around. I totally understand that. And again, the opposition is always going to call for that, no matter who the opposition is. I know Labour was when the Conservatives had their different prime ministers coming in and out of number 10, but I just don't know if I actually see it happening because Labour's majority is so big and they have so much to lose. I would not be surprised at all if the next election actually ends up being in 2028. I mean, we'll just have to see what happens if it is indeed Andy Burnham is the next Prime Minister. There are a lot of questions to answer. There are still a lot of unknowns. And to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and tell you today that I know for sure that Labour's fortunes are going to turn around if it's Burnham. I can't tell you that. I think it's actually too soon to know. But we will only start to get a feel for this after the leadership has actually changed. So I would encourage some patience. The next election, even if Burnham does call a snap election, it's not going to be for a little bit anyway. So we got a ways to go yet in this thing to know if there actually will be any sort of a change in government or if Labour can rehabilitate itself. But if you want to find out more about it, you got to stick around here at Legomicus Elections. Like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We'll see you soon.